Nicole Huntsman here from moderncosmic.com. We have got our sun sign compatibility here on this video. If you know what sun sign means, fast forward to the timestamp you see or the description of the video. So in Western astrology, we take the year, the 12 calendar months, okay, and we divide them up according to the Earth's relationship to the sun. And this makes sense if you think back in the day when we were farmers. The movement of the sun, it's actually our movement, the tilt of our Earth relative to the sun and how it affects the seasons was very important. Springtime, time to plant, summertime to take care of and tend the fields, and of course fall time to harvest, and then winter was time to preserve the things that you had stored and make them last till spring again. Now, in astrology, we look at these 4 important dates that are repeatable, they happen every year, and they are the spring equinox, the summer solstice, the fall equinox, and the winter solstice, okay? We have our zodiac signs all set up according to these solar events. In the springtime, when we have our spring equinox, March 21st, this is that time of year when the equator of the Earth is facing the sun, directly, and the Earth is level, so to speak. So, we are on an axis and the Earth tilts. At this point in the year, we're level. That's why you can spin an egg and it will spin. Now, that's the beginning of the zodiac year, and really should be the beginning of our year. It would make sense to have the time when we go from winter, where we have more darkness than light, to the time when it's equal. We have an equal amount of daylight and equal amount of darkness, and then we move into the time of the year, the spring, when we have more light and less darkness each day, okay, until we hit the summer solstice, where we have the most light, more light, and less of the darkness. So with the zodiac, your sun sign falls during a month between those 4 events. So your sun sign is going to fall into one of these segments, okay? We've got the 12 months divided up into 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, according to those solar events. And then in each of those sections, we have 3 zodiac signs, okay? Your sun sign is important in that it shows your general life force. If you think of the sun is the star in our solar system. It is the mass, the giant mass, relative to us anyway, that is holding our solar system together. Without the sun, without our star, we wouldn't be here, and if something happened to our sun, we would all die, we would perish. We eat food that's made from the energy of the sun. We are literally made of sun, which is pretty cool. Someone's sun sign shows you the basic premise upon which their personality is built. It's like a canvas that we're going to paint upon. It doesn't have any paint on it yet, it's just the canvas. Is it wood? Is it metal? Is it canvas? Is it a panel? Is it round? Is it square? How big is it? How little is it? The zodiac sign will sort of illuminate, and it will explain and make granular sort of this very basic part of what we have to work with, okay, with the personality. So it's the first step in building, when you're looking at an astrology birth chart, it's the first thing you look at because you're going to build upon it, all right? And then all the brushstrokes come with the moon and all the angular houses and the planets and the aspects between the planets. That's when it becomes a beautiful picture. But until then, it's just you're one of the 12 zodiac signs. This is very general. Sun signs are general. It's a general vibe. You've got someone who's kind of more of a feeler, someone who's more of a thinker. But there are all different types of feelers and there are all different types of thinkers, okay? We get that granularity by looking at the entire birth chart and by putting the 2 people together, okay? You can have a feeler and a thinker get together and be really happy if they've got other things in their birth chart that make nice compatibility interaspects. If for some reason your sun signs don't get along well, let's say we've got someone who is, let's say we've got a Capricorn and an Aquarius, very different energies. Capricorn's conservative, Aquarius is an iconoclast and does their own thing. On the surface, sun sign wise, these 2 aren't going to jive perfectly. But if you look underneath, maybe they have moons that are both in water, and it gives them an emotional warmth, or it gives them an emotional depth to the cooler Capricorn Aquarius facade. There's another thing you want to look at between your compatibility charts. There are several, but another important primary planetary aspect that you want to look at, or planetary placement, I should say, that you want to look at. And I'm going to talk about this at the end of the video, so stay tuned, watch the compatibility, and at the very end I'll explain to you how to find If your sun compatibility isn't great, there's another thing you can look at that will indicate whether or not the two of you are going to have long-lasting happiness together, or if it's going to be sort of a no-win battle, okay? All right, let's get on to our sun signs, and please leave me comments if you have questions, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Aries. Aries are our people born March 21st to April 19th. This is the first sign in the zodiac. These people are born during the time of the year when we're moving from the wintertime into the spring. So there's a vitality. There is an outgoing movement of energy, just like a plant would be blooming, a tulip would pop up through the soil. That's sort of the same thing that I see with an Aries. They're dynamic, they're outwardly focused, passionate, they need fuel, and they are fighters. Now, Aries also, these are the independent soldiers of the zodiac. They're our protagonists. They're the first person, the individual setting out on this journey of the zodiac. And as you move through the different zodiac signs, you'll see how this journey progresses. Self-starters like Aries, a lot of times they're perfectly comfortable going it alone. They're quite comfortable in leadership roles. They prefer to be in leadership roles. And so partnerships sometimes for Aries can be a little tricky. While they crave it, that's human nature to desire closeness and warmth and affection from other people. Aries sometimes don't always know how to go about getting it. They can be a little bit combative and a little what's the word, scratchy, in their relationships. But overall, these are brave, inspiring, self-starting, innovative, wonderful people that they just require a partner with some patience, and a partner who also is willing to be just as passionate and fiery as they are, but maybe perhaps a little bit more grounded. On the shadow side of Aries, we do have an individual who can be a little self-centered. They can be a little like the fool from the tarot deck, stepping off the cliff while the dog is barking. Don't go that way, They can sometimes be overly optimistic, or they can perhaps, instead of planning, they just want to jump into something and get going, and quite impulsive, okay? They can be a little difficult to teach at times. And they can sometimes lack the emotional tact that is required in love relationships and just general interpersonal relating. But if you have patience with an Aries, they are not the type to hold a grudge. They will usually kind of, they've let it out and then they're good after. So typically they're quite forgiving, and they have this childlike nature to them where it's almost a naivete and an innocence. They don't really mean anything by it. They just sometimes, like I said, they're not necessarily easy to teach, and so they have to kind of do things over and over again until they figure them out. Aries in love. These are individuals, right? They like to make the first move. Aries prefers being the one doing the chasing, at least initially. Even Aries females, with an Aries female, they can sometimes be accused of being too direct or too, forward with men. In our culture, at least, I'm here in the United States, in Western culture, traditionally men were the ones who would take that lead role. So female Aries sometimes can be accused of being ball busters or bitches or too brave or too headstrong, or these things. And I say bowl to that. I think that Aries we need Aries men and women. These are the ones that are the brave, courageous individuals that will go for something. Now, in love, they need passion. They need passion, they need sex. They're a very physical sign, and they actually need fights, believe it or not. And when I say fights, I don't mean, out and out emotional drama, but they like a little bit of a little bit of a tension or friction in their relationships. They need that. If there was someone who doesn't really push back or lean back against them or was always pleasing them, they'll get annoyed and they'll get bored. And you don't want an annoyed, bored Aries, because you won't have them for long. They will be out of there, okay? Aries expectations in love. Because they're so passionate, they give the passionate spontaneously, freely, just whenever they want to. They're not the most dependable, they're going to do it when they want to do it, unless they have a lot of earth and other things in their chart. And even then, they kind of have to be the boss about when they're going to express their love. You can't really boss an Aries around. They can be this sort of childlike. They can be a little bit selfish, where they want all of their partner's love and attention, but they don't really have a problem with flirting or this kind of thing with other people, and nothing is meant by it. But they They need to have their freedom, but they also need to know that they are number one, that there's no one else in their partner's life. Aries' biggest fear, and this goes for all the zodiac signs, you look at their strength, and that's always tells you where their biggest fear is. With an Aries, you do have a bold, brave, enterprising individual, okay? But on the inside, they're like a little kid. The reason they're bold and brave is because it just doesn't occur to them that there's going to be an issue with them just striking it out and doing their thing and saying what they think. And, you know, they haven't, it's almost like their soul hasn't had enough experience, it hasn't been battered around enough to have sort of learned this lesson. So their biggest fear is actually they're quite vulnerable on the inside. This is like a little kid on the inside, and really what they really want is love, affection, warmth, and belonging. And I suppose it's what most of us want, but because Aries puts on this whole facade of being brave and independent, not needing anyone, you sort of just assume they really are not needing anyone, but that's actually quite incorrect. So anyone who can recognize the innocence in an Aries and can give them their space to be themselves, but also that needs them. The person that is emotionally brave enough to say to an Aries, I need your bravery and courage to keep me safe, to protect me. That is a way to tap into the part of the Aries that, yes, the part that's vulnerable, but they can project that onto you. It's a way for them to protect in an indirect way their own inner vulnerabilities, okay? So it's a little trick. Scorpio. Scorpio, these are our sun signs born from October 23rd through November 21st. Now, I love Scorpio. Probably, I have my moon in the 8th house, the Scorpio house, so you have to bear with me. This is super self-indulgent, I guess. We have got our most intense, some would say intense, possibly secretive, deeper expressions of any of the sun signs when we have a Scorpio in our midst. There is an undercurrent with Scorp. This is a scorpion. I like to think of this as the other traditional symbols applied to Scorpio would be phoenix, the eagle, the snake, because these all have to do with regeneration, death, and rebirth. The Scorpio, in my mind, has a very strong, dark feminine energy, meaning we were all, at one point in time, in a womb. That would have been a dark, wet place inside of a female, the feminine. And it's a place that was unconscious, that we don't remember. We were expelled from that place through a process that was probably painful, I would imagine, getting your head squeezed or squeezed? Yeah, squeezed. I was going to say squozed. Squeezed through the birth canal, right? That cannot be pleasant. And you're this little soft, little thing, and you're helpless. So that's the dark feminine. Now, our mothers that give us life also give us death. Because to be born means you're here mortally, and you will die. So your mother gave you the gift of life and the gift of death. That's the dark feminine. That's Scorpio energy. Scorpio has to do with life and death. All of our big, big, big life lessons come through the life and death processes that we experience as humans. Everything from when you leave home to go to kindergarten as a 5-year-old, that part of your life dies and this new part is reborn. Scorpio and Pluto. Pluto rules Scorpio, and traditionally Mars also rules Scorpio. So I always look at both in the birth chart, placements of both Mars and Pluto to help inform the sun. That's for another video. But these are both strong masculine energies. Mars is, the warrior, and its passion, and its fight, and its aggression. And Pluto is also similar. It's also a sort of aggression in that it's like the explosion. It's the death and rebirth of something through a process that destroys something to give birth to something else. It's almost, to me, Pluto's really actually, even though it's traditionally a male god, it to me is female. It's the dark feminine. It's Pluto, the god of the underworld. Hello, that's about as feminine as you get. So, anyway, so Scorpio types. I don't want to get in too deep on this. Scorpio types are intense. They have an intensity to them. In a personality, it comes out through this understanding that the partner, it can almost be an ethereal partnership, can be this ethereal thing where the partner could just disappear and the partnership dies, and they have to be faced with the mourning process of the death of this relationship. So this can make them quite possessive or jealous or paranoid, or they'll really pay attention to the things their partner's doing because they're looking for these little signs, waiting for the other shoe to drop, kind of a deal, right? Now, Scorpio also is traditionally thought of as ruling sex. You know, it's like, oh, Scorpios are so sexy. They're sexed up, you know, sex, sex, sex. All of any sun sign. I mean, we're human beings. It's one of our primal urges. We have a limbic system, so we desire sexual contact and emotional sexual contact and bonding and this kind of thing with our partners. So, of course, Scorpio does as well. It's how it's approached. So Scorpio, sexuality is a place for Scorpio where many times Scorpio energy is expressed through sexuality, because sex is a place where we see a perfect metaphor for life. So I always say 8th house is like this. You've got when we're born, you are one with the mother, right, in the womb. And then you're born, and then you got the mom and you got you. The individual, you take your first breath when you separate from the mother and you become a duality. It's you and the mother, all right? And then you have life, death, that rhythm, and then you die one day and are buried, cremated, whatever, okay? Your spirit ascends and goes elsewhere, in my mind. Now, with sex, you have, instead of having the one, you have the two come together to make the one. So you've got the duality coming together to make the singular, the unity, the one. And in this process, you have two people come together, they kiss, they share the breath of life with one another. Just like when you are born, you have to take that first breath alone. Sexuality is about coming back together to the oneness and sharing it with another person. That's Scorpio. That's 8th house. 8th house is all about sharing these intense bonds and contracts we have with other people. And this includes in business. This is why 8th house has to do with like loans and, money, child support, it's agreements and contracts that have been made that involve the exchange of resources, okay? Okay, so that's Scorpio. So a high functioning Scorpio, you've got someone who is focused, driven, determined. There is a strong that Martian energy, which is quite masculine, it's the masculine energy, combined with the Plutonian energy, which is this ability to transform situations. They can see the psychological underpinnings in relationships between people, like in business. They can see patterns. They can know. And they have a very strong intuition where they just kind of know the way and the direction things are going to run. So they stick with that. But they're also they're good at keeping secrets, and they're good at keeping confidences with other humans. And they'll use that many times. I mean, they understand psychology, so they're good. They're good. We'll talk about this in a second. They can be manipulative. That's what I'm trying to say. But they really what they desire is intimacy with their partner. They desire closeness. They desire that bond that is unbreakable, like a to the death bond. That's what they really want. So they can be kind of intense, and they can focus all of their energy on one person. That's quite Scorp. A lot of times Scorpios, they'll be in situations with unrequited love, because when they fall in love, they really fall in love, and they're sort of stuck there. Until someone else, I suppose, comes along, but they'll still harbor that, okay? So, and also they're very sensually expressive. They are good lovers. I mean, they are comfortable going places that are quite kinky that other people maybe aren't comfortable going into. Again, look at their moon and look at their Venus. That's going to tell you emotionally how they feel about that. But because a Scorpio is interested, as most of the water signs are, they're interested in pleasing the partner, they'll roll. Low-functioning Scorpio. Traditionally, Scorpios are known as being jealous. It's always, oh, Scorps are jealous, they're possessive, they're, yada, yada, yada. Yes, they are. But let's talk about why they are. Like we said earlier, Scorpio is dealing with this deep understanding, this deep sort of unconscious knowing that once something's been born, including a relationship, it will one day die. Knowing this on a really deep level, they carry that with them. So in relationships, many times, that is what drives or can fuel perhaps jealousy or worry. It's more of a worry, I feel like, and then it turns into jealousy, and it turns into like anger, because it starts as a knowing, moves to a worry. So it starts in here, feeling, moves up into the brain, they're knowing something, and then it comes back down to here, knowing it and worrying. They'll worry, ruminate about it, and then it comes back down to here, and then they're mad, they're angry. And that's when you see jealousy, okay? Because Scorps are pattern watchers, they're noticing. They notice, and they don't even know they're noticing because they're like ninjas, like they're ninja noticers, and then it will come out later in an eruption of jealousy, or them going through stalking your Facebook or something, you know, stuff like that. It's also Scorpio moon, also someone who's got the moon in the 8th house. These things can happen. So just, or someone who's got Pluto conjunct the sun or the moon, they'll also have these similar characteristics. So they're intense emotionally. They can be temperamental. They can be, all the water signs can be kind of passive aggressive. Scorp's less likely to be passive aggressive unless it's someone they really love and they don't want to hurt the relationship, and so they're in this double bind where they want to say something like they normally would in a business situation. Normally they're very quite aggressive, but in an interpersonal situation they're sensitive to the partner, but then they're also mad at themselves for not saying something. They get resentful, and then it becomes this passive aggressive or silent treatment thing or control thing where they're trying to control the partner. So it can get a little messy. And the biggest issue the Scorpios have, all Scorps, they are so determined and focused on something, which is great, but they need to know when to let go and to stop, okay? You know, I've got my second daughter, third child, she's Scorpio, and very Scorpio, and Libra everything else. Like all of her personal planets Libra, but Scorpio Sun. And she is very loving, but man, when she has her mind set on something, it's really hard to explain to her logically that no, you can't have that bag of popsicles right now. And she will sit and talk with you and try and convince you for 30 minutes that she should have that bag of popsicles. That's Scorpio, okay? That's also Scorpio mixed with Libra. But she doesn't do it my other daughter's Libra with all Scorp, and that energy is very different. She's also very determined, but she candy coats it. The Scorpio Sun isn't going to candy coat it. They're going to care a lot about their interpersonal relationships with that, a lot of Libra stuff, but the Scorpio on the outside makes them more aggressive and more, you know, like in your face with it, okay, and not quitting. They're like a pit bull. They don't let go. Even a really sweet Scorpio, when they want something, they're very determined, okay? Scorpio in love, as we've been discussing, they're intense and focused. This definitely applies to their love relationships. They can be obsessive. They can, many times, this is common with the Scorpio, when they fall for someone, they can have this unrequited love thing I was talking about. They fall really deeply very quickly. Actually, not quickly. No, they fall very deeply, and it's something that really hits them in the middle, and they may sense that they know something, that this is someone that's meant to be with them, that sort of thing. And they've got to be careful that what they're thinking that they're knowing, that it's not actually something else that's subconsciously brewing inside of them. Perhaps this person that they're falling for so deeply, who's not requiting the affection, perhaps this person simply holds energy or behaves in a way that reflects their own inner whatever part of them that they feel like this person reflects, right? So you'd have a Scorpio that's more shy, who's attracted to someone who's really confident and bold, and I'm using a very simplistic comparison, but you know, so many times the Scorpios need to ask themselves, if the person's not requiting the feelings, what is it about this person that they carry that I lack, okay? And that can give you some insight in love. But that being said, side note, Scorpios in love, they have an intense sense that they should be in this partnership. If they're going to be in a partnership, they need to feel like this is meant to be, okay? Because there's a fated quality. There's this, it needs to have the sense that it's this contract they've made with one another and they're meant to be together. Also, very important to note, Scorpios, they are extreme. They want it all or they want nothing. They have a really hard time with the gray area in between. They'll walk it for a while if they love someone, but they're going to be really at least on the inside, pissed off that they're having to operate in this place where they're in this gray area that's meaningless to them. They want either all of it or none of it. Like, what's this gray area? What is this? This is not even anything. It's fake, okay? They're authentic to the extreme. Scorpio expectations in love. Let's think of the myth of Pluto, right? He took Persephone away down to the underworld. He took everything. Like, Scorpio wants everything. They want true love. They want body, heart, soul, mind. They want you, you know, if they want the thing, all of it. And there's a possessive quality to Scorpio. You know, even if you've got a Scorp who's got, I know a Scorpio, I dated one who's got Uranus conjunct his Scorpio Sun. Okay, so we've got this freedom-loving energy conjunct a Scorpio sun sign. So expressed for him, he was someone who had multiple, you know, people he was seeing. But I would say he was quite directed, and he needed to be in a role where he was kind of in charge. Would be sort of the Scorpio. He had to have that self-possession. And if he knew that you were seeing other people, he wouldn't really, he'd see you, but he wouldn't open himself up at all. It was all inward inside of him. So they're They will give you everything, and they expect everything in return. They won't give you anything until they think that they're going to get everything, kind of a deal too, you know. So they expect it all. They're an extreme sign. Scorpio's biggest fear, when you have a sun sign, a zodiac sign, a personality, that is one of extremes. It's all or nothing. It's intense, and there's a focus there. They can focus that intensity and shine it like a laser on one person. Their fear is that they understand that they're deep, they understand that they're intense and that they're a lot, and their fear is that it's not going to be reciprocated, and that it's maybe not even possible for it to be reciprocated, that they will walk the earth unrequited in their love, and that they'll be solo travelers. Even in a relationship, like there's even that fear for Scorps, you know, that they get into a love relationship where it's a committed relationship, but they feel like their partner is never quite in the same place that they're at, this life or death, I will die for you place. So they really need a partner who is as intense as they are, in my mind, who's grounded but really intense and willing to intensely go to those places. And it takes someone, in my mind, that has some strong Scorpio or some strong 8th house or some strong Pluto on their sun or their moon or their rising. Even their Venus maybe, but I would like to see it on luminaries because it's your personality. Like you got to be okay with some intense depth for it to work. All right, Aries and Scorpio. This is an interesting combination. Scorpio traditionally was ruled by Mars until we discovered the planet/planetoid that we call Pluto. So nowadays Scorpio is Pluto's the ruler of Scorpio, but also Mars is the traditional ruler. So and Aries is ruled by Mars. So this means you've got two people who are have a fighting quality to them. They have a spirit of that can be aggressive or assertive, that desire to assert the will, which means you've got two people who are quite passionate, as we would say, and so this can be a relationship of extremes. You can have highs and you can have some serious lows with these two. What will initially attract these two will be that emotional, fiery passion that they'll have between them. There'll be a definite sparkiness and a chemistry. Now, that's also a little bit what will kind of repel these two. Scorpio is intense and deep, and they want a deep connection, and Aries is a little bit more surface many times. So Scorpio can be quite jealous and possessive, and Aries doesn't really like that, does not do well under someone else's sort of thumb, I guess. Long-term interaction between these two, as long as they don't kill each other first, it could be good. You know, it could be passionate. A long-term sort of romantic interaction of it could be a little love-hate even, I would say, between these two, because you've got this these two people who are very opinionated about sort of how relationships should be, and their version and picture of what the ideal relationship is might be slightly different or very different. Aries wants to sort of have their cake and eat it too. They want to have a relationship that's, you know, this idealized version of love, but they also want to have the freedom to go kind of do their own thing. Scorpio needs intense connection, and they can be jealous. They're loyal. They're a very loyal sign, but they expect to have all of their partner. They want to possess all of their partners. So there can be, Aries can feel like Scorpio is either too demanding or too needy or even manipulative, and Aries will be turned off by that. That's just not their thing. They like to keep things a little bit more up here rather than so deep and brooding and you know, intense as Scorpio likes. And Scorpio is going to feel like Aries might be a little shallow or a little bit immature, or, you know, grow up, like get over yourself, and let's be grown-ups in this relationship. So you can have these issues bumping against each other. Specific areas of conflict and harmony. Now, Aries may have finally met a partner that's stronger than he is or she is. Scorpio is probably the most powerful sign in my mind. Scorpio suns have this ability to understand the psychology of other human beings in a way that's very intuitive, and therefore that gives them a lot of strength, the ability to manipulate other people, not necessarily consciously. It's just kind of this ability to control their environment around them, and that includes the human beings around them. So Aries doesn't necessarily like that. Aries is a masculine sign. It's like the male sign. It's ruled by Mars. And so Aries wants to feel like they're in charge. They want to feel like they have control over things. So this issue of who is in control, who is in charge, who's controlling whom, these will be themes that will come up over and over again between these two. On the high side, harmony between these two is the sex. They'll have a very passionate sex life as long as there's not the emotional stuff happening, then their sex life will be really heated and active and could be really fantastic. Have an element of aggression to it, or quality of like, you know, be very physically active, bruising each other, and I don't know, hitting each other. Just be passionate, you know. So how others will see the partnership. It's going to look a little crazy from the outside, probably. Probably look like a relationship where people are together and then breaking up, and then together and then breaking up, and really these fights that are over issues of jealousy and, you know, possessiveness and things like that. So people might think it's, on the outside, it's going to look pretty tumultuous.